Whitney In trying to figure out exactly where he stands with David, initially being helped by him and then forcing him to issue a threat on his life for what he did to his sister. Farouk supercharged his astral, psychic powers to project his mind into the future to see exactly what it held in store for him. Brilliantly represented by him working on the engine of a car, only to gas himself with the exhaust fumes. In meeting with Future-Syd Farouk and we the audience were finally given confirmation of something I know a lot of others had already predicted. The threat that ruined the world of the future was none other than David himself. Not necessarily some great revelation, but it will mean the course of character stories will now have to change. Farouk, who would rather not die by David's hand, is now set on a course to save his own life and possibly save the world, a delightful reversal of fortunes as he points out he's been branded the villain for so long. Even if he is. Back in the present, David and Syd continued to work on their relationship, specifically in relation to the boundaries that should be set with regard to how David interacted with Future-Syd. It was cute to see them negotiate around the inherent weirdness of ruling that your boyfriend can't get too intimate with a future version of yourself. Is it cheating? Who's to say? Anyway, it's now clearer why Future-Syd was so happy to see David. It wasn't because he was dead and gone, but because he was the cause of all of her pain in the time she was from. And perhaps, just perhaps, if things were changed enough, she could get her David back. The fact that the Shadow King knows this, and we know this, but that David doesn't adds a neat dramatic irony going into the last stretch of the season. The episode opened with the latest exploration of psychological themes, focusing this time on moral panic and mass hysteria. Something which the episode went into in great detail as finally the idea of the delusion, that creepy little egg creature, came to a head. Hatching inside Tanami and convincing him that Admiral Fukuyama was some kind of enemy, a monster even, the delusion forced Tanami to plant the idea in the others' heads so they all saw it too. Felt it even. Fearing that Fukuyama was keeping tabs on them all via his own Legion of the Vermilion, represented by a brilliantly creepy, don't blink, chase, dance-off sequence, the Division 3 team decided to take the fight to Fukuyama. Busting into his, for lack of a better term, throne room, they would have killed their enigmatic boss if not for the timely intervention of David. Quickly sussing out what the delusion was, he was able to extract it from their minds, figuratively plucking the creatures from their brains and stomping them into oblivion. Or perhaps literally, the original creature, the one that Lion Tanami, was too strong and, quite bafflingly, tore free of his body and tried to flee. Now, whether this was meant to just be a visual representation of the idea of a delusion running rampant, I don't know. Frankly, in a show like Legion, I don't think it matters even that much. The creature, however, grown to a size larger than an adult man, did tear through the corridors of Division 3 like something out of Aliens. Not bad for an idea. Ultimately, David confronted the creature in what was clearly a psychic battle, though interestingly, it didn't include the typical aspect ratio shift, the Legion's only real clear signifier that we're not seeing something in the real world. It made me go back and check if the ratio had been present during the team's confrontation of Fukuyama. It wasn't. The lack of that visual signal and the very visceral presence of Tanami laying on the floor dying due to the creature having burst out from him left me presuming it had been real on some level. I think it's literally the most confused I've been watching Legion thus far, but it was still riveting stuff. With Tanami's injury, Legion introduced real consequence to this little sidetrack from the main story. As he was dying, Fukuyama and the Vermilion dragged him into their network, something which ostensibly looked like a forest but for all I know could just be a digital representation, to plug his mind into the network and save him by digitizing his soul. Tanami lived but found himself inside the machine, all zeros and ones. And just who is the creepy old lady in there with him? Like I said, most confused I've ever been at this show. With 4 episodes to go though, Chapter 15 added some needed twists before the finale. The delusion may be gone but Tanami is now part of a machine mind. How will the man who can never forget react to it? How will the team function having, in a way, lost a member? But most curiously, how will the Shadow King alter his tactics to save the world of the future from the supposed hero for this story? Don't get me wrong, I want Farouk to pay for what he's done. But knowing David's revenge could come at the price of the end of the world as we know it. It's a delicious predicament to put the show into, not at least because the bad guy technically holds all the cards on this one.